where this cryo cooler setup was basically just a little refrigerator or heat pump system that exploits the fact that gas gets hot when it's compressed and cold when it expands.
Yeah, basically. It's a closed...
A smaller beaker. I then kept going, and in my opinion, it was looking really promising. However, it was a total failure. All I ended up with was a very small amount of oily junk, and it was at this moment that I was really happy I only used half of my battle lady. Like every other time, I initially didn't know what had gone wrong, and my biggest fear was that I hadn't actually made the Vanilla Amy. However, it turned out that it was just entirely my fault. The procedure clearly said that a solvent called ethyl acetate was used, but this was just a general procedure, and I decided to swap it to hexanes.
See, that's an issue when one procedure doesn't have the vetting, it doesn't list an alternate, and also just not following it directly.
I did this because the hexanes had worked really well with the isononanoic acid, and I figured that it would work well again.
That's just not necessarily the case every single time. I mean...
I was completely wrong, and I was punished for my assumption. So now it was time to try it again, except using ethyl acetate, and I only had one chance to make it work. I set the reaction up in the exact same way as before.
I'm not sure what his logic was. I guess just that it worked well before, but that's the equivalent to like trying to skip an intermediate step. So if it's like, if the startup procedure says there are 5 hold points, you use all 5 hold points. I don't know if it was a shortcut or it was just he already had the hexane set up, but I don't know. To me, it didn't seem like much of a time saver, but feel free to let me know in the comments if I'm wrong about that. But either way, yeah, it's better to follow your procedure.
And when it was done, 20 hours later, I added it to a separatory funnel. I also washed it with a bit of water to make sure that I transferred everything. I then added a bunch of saturated salt solution, and this easily dissolved everything.
One other thing about switching the solvents in this case, this is kind of like making adjustments to your reactor coolant chemistry. If your moderator, like in a pressurized water reactor, it's going to be water, is the wrong density, your neutrons will thermalize them correctly, and it can either stall your reactor or give you an unexpected spike.
I added some ethyl acetate, and I could immediately tell that it was better than the hexanes. It looked like it had actually dissolved stuff, and it had completely pulled out the color. I then did the usual shaking part, and this time, it was way cleaner. I didn't have any of that weird goopy stuff floating around, and it was a lot easier to drain away the lower layer. But anyway, like before, I transferred the ethyl acetate to a beaker, and I repeated the extraction 4 times. After that, I poured it all back into a separatory funnel, and I washed it a bunch of times.